This is the Arturio MicroFreak. It's one of my favorite synthesizers ever, and it just got a huge upgrade. It can now play samples. The MicroFreak is, of course, extremely versatile with many different synthesis options. Even so, there are some timbres that a digital synth just can't easily reproduce. The sound of most acoustic instruments is still best left to recordings of the real thing, which is why I'm so excited that sample playback got added. I've just installed the latest firmware, so let's dig in. In order to give this a spin, of course, I need to gather some samples. One sound I'm particularly excited to load onto the synth are the flutes from the Chamberlin M1. This is from a decent sampler instrument that Jamie Liddell released 2 months ago, and I just love this sound. This sample library is extremely deep and consists of hundreds of different samples. Of course, the MicroFreak only lets me assign one sample to a preset, so we'll see how that sounds. I'm also going to record some samples of my own. Next, I'm going to insert the SD card from my Zoom recorder into my computer and edit the samples. I'm chopping them down to remove the silence, and I'm tuning them. I'm guessing they all need to be tuned to C. Okay, now it's time to load these samples onto the MicroFreak. The MicroFreak comes with a piece of software called MIDI Control Center. I've got the latest version installed. It takes a while for the software to sync up with the device, but once it does, I'm going to open up the Samples tab. As you can see, I've created a new bank called DH. Next, I'm going to use the import menu at the top of the screen to load the WAV files into my bank. I'll spare you the misery of watching me do each of these samples. Next, I guess I can move them to the device by just dragging them over to the right-hand side of the screen. Oh wow, this is going to take a while. Okay, we're not going to watch this in real time. Let's fast forward. Okay, so my samples are now loaded onto the MicroFreak. According to the docs, there are 4 new synthesis engines to choose from, so let's try them out. The first one is just the basic sample player. By default, it's just going to play the first sample in memory, which is a factory preset. If I press Shift and turn the type knob, I can open up the sample chooser. I'm going to try this Chamberlin flutes I'm so excited about. Oh, that's really cool. So the 3 parameters are start point, length, and loop. I'm going to see if I can get this thing to loop. Perfect. Okay, let's keep exploring. The next 3 engines are for doing granular synthesis. The first one is called Cloud. It's for making granular textures, so it's really good for pads. One of the samples I loaded onto this thing is me singing the phrase childhood home. Childhood home. It's just a little snippet of vocals from some song I recorded. Let's see if we can make a texture out of it. Granular is a technique that involves playing tiny chunks of sound over and over again. The chunks are called grains. The timbre knob controls the size of the grains. And the wave knob controls the start point. I'm just going to scan through until I find something that sounds good. That sounds cool. Of course, we could add even more depth to it by modulating the start position. Maybe not that much. That's really cool. By the way, here's what happens when I put that sound through a boutique multi-effects pedal, the Meris LVX. Okay, moving on. Next, we've got Scan. Scan allows us to do some sort of retro time stretching on our samples. I'm going to switch to that bell sample that I recorded. That has a really long tail, but I'm going to see if I can make it even longer. Actually sounds pretty cool. Okay, time to try out that final granular synth engine. Arturia describes this as being really good for percussive sounds. Basically, it triggers the sample over and over again very rapidly. Of the 3 granular modes, this is the one I definitely see using the least, but I'm not sad it's there. Okay, now that we've seen the modes, let's try to make some music. Let's go back to those Chamberlin flutes. Got Ableton Live set up, gonna hit record and see what we can do. Okay, I'm going to do some quick cleanup. Now let's record a second layer. Okay. Not bad. I'm going to try to turn this into a beat. All in all, this is kind of an amazing update. Over the years, the MicroFreak has been the gift that keeps on giving. The 3.0 firmware added new synth modes, the 4.0 firmware added wavetables, and now we've got sample playback. As the developer of Decent Sampler and someone who's very committed to sampling in general, I've wanted to see sample playback on the MicroFreak for a long time, but I just assumed it wasn't technically possible. Even if it has its limitations, like you can only have 1 sample per preset, and loading samples is a slow process, it's incredibly cool that it works at all. I'm really excited to keep on messing with it. If you enjoyed this video, it'd be great if you could give me a thumbs up. Also, if you haven't already, now's a great time to subscribe. I've got a bunch of exciting videos on the way. Speaking of which, if you enjoy the videos I make, a great way of supporting the channel is by joining the Patreon. It costs $5, and every month you get an exclusive Patreon sample library, which you can download from right within the Decent Sampler plugin, which is pretty cool. See you soon.